What if everything you've been chasing in life, money, love, health, freedom, wasn't outside of you at all but already alive within you? What if the difference between lack and abundance, loneliness and love, struggle and ease, was simply which reality you dared to enter through your imagination? Neville Goddard's teachings hold a radical truth. Imagination is not fantasy, it is the portal to all realities. And here's the paradox. The harder you wait for proof, the longer it hides. But the moment you live in the end, assuming your wish fulfilled, reality begins to bend in ways you can't explain. This isn't about positive thinking or daydreaming, it's about stepping into the inner world where your desire already exists. Once you do, the outer world has no choice but to mirror it. The question is, are you bold enough to enter that portal and see for yourself? Have you ever noticed how the mind replays certain scenes as if they carry weight beyond random thought? Most people dismiss this as just imagination, but Neville Goddard's teachings reveal something deeper. These inner pictures are not illusions, they are the raw material of creation. The inner world plants the seed, and the outer world eventually grows the tree. The mistake is thinking imagination is simply fantasy. Fantasy entertains, then vanishes. Imagination is the portal to all realities. It is alive, formative, and creative. The law of assumption responds not to idle daydreams, but to what you dare to assume as already true. This is where manifestation truth begins, in the subtle yet powerful space inside. Think of a child building a castle out of blocks. To them, it's not plastic on the floor. It's a fortress, a world, something real. Adults forget this power, brushing imagination aside as childish. Yet Neville Goddard insisted imagination creates reality. That childlike capacity is not an escape. It is the door to conscious creation. Your imagination is the stage on which your life first appears. Every love story, every business, every song, every spiritual awakening started as a picture within. What seems like a fleeting image is actually a seed with life inside it. The more you feel it, the more it expands into form, quietly shaping your world. Consider a musician. Before a single note is played, the melody exists within. The audience hears it later, but the song is already real inside the composer's mind. This is the power of assumption at work. Unseen, yet undeniable, waiting to be expressed. Your inner pictures function the same way, silently preparing your future. Most people believe reality is immovable, but it bends to what you continually feed it. If you rehearse fear, life gives you reasons to fear. If you live in the end, assuming the wish fulfilled, the world rearranges accordingly. Imagination is the door through which chosen possibilities enter every single time. This principle touches money, health, relationships, everything. Before the promotion appears, someone already imagines themselves thriving in it. Before healing comes, someone already feels whole inside. Imagination doesn't wait for outer proof, it provides it. That is why Neville Goddard's teachings echo so strongly. Live as if, and the unseen becomes seen. Think of a farmer holding a seed. He doesn't question if it could become a tree. He trusts the process. He plants, waters, and expects growth. Your inner scenes are the same. They are seeds of destiny. Imagination is the portal, and the law of assumption is the soil where everything germinates. So the next time someone says, "Stop daydreaming, face reality," smile. They don't know you're already in reality, the inner one, which is the cause of the outer. Conscious creation begins when you honor imagination as the true source of change. That's where transformation truly begins. And this is where Neville Goddard's bold claim comes alive. Imagination creates reality, not metaphorically, but literally. If imagination itself is the creative power, then the real question is simple. What are you daring to assume right now? Neville Goddard's voice was clear and uncompromising. Imagination creates reality. These were not words meant to inspire for a moment. They were a law, a fact of existence. Everything you vividly assume within, whether in hope or fear, takes root. The outer world is simply the harvest of your inner assumptions, quietly unfolding with time. Imagine planting a single seed in soil. The moment it's buried, the future tree already exists in potential. You may not see it yet, but the growth is inevitable. In the same way, what you picture and feel inside carries life. The wish fulfilled, once assumed, is no longer a maybe. It's a seed destined to sprout. Neville's teachings often sound radical because they shift the source of creation. Most people believe circumstances shape them. But he turned that upside down, saying the inner world shapes circumstances. This changes everything. You're not at the mercy of chance, you're holding the brush that paints the canvas of your life. Consider relationships. If someone assumes no one ever stays, they live inside that seed, and the world echoes it back. But if another assumes, I am deeply loved, their inner state calls forth evidence of that truth. Both are living out assumptions, but only one chooses consciously. That choice is the essence of creation. Think of an athlete visualizing victory before stepping into the arena. They don't picture defeat. They live the feeling of triumph in advance. And reality, more often than not, mirrors that state. This is not luck. It's the law of assumption at work. The inner win precedes the outer one every single time. The mind is always sowing, whether you realize it or not. Idle fears, casual complaints, repeated stories, these are seeds too. The outer world is impartial. It simply reflects what's planted. But when you deliberately assume the wish fulfilled, you shift the soil of your mind. You begin planting what you actually want to harvest. Neville spoke of living in the end, and this was his genius. Don't beg for what you desire. Assume it already exists in you. If you imagine health, walk as though it's yours. If you imagine wealth, feel the security of abundance now. The assumption itself is the cause, and reality follows without effort. People often wait for evidence before believing, but Neville reversed the order. Believe first and the evidence will come. It feels counterintuitive, almost unreasonable, yet this is the secret. Manifestation truth unfolds not because of outer proof, but because of inner conviction. What you dare to assume is the seed of what you meet. Even when nothing changes on the outside, something has already shifted within. And that inner state is magnetic. It pulls circumstances, events, and people to match it. This is why Neville Goddard's teachings endure. They place power back where it belongs, in your imagination, in your ability to assume boldly. So, the next time you ask yourself why life looks the way it does, trace it back to the inner seed. Ask, what am I assuming about myself, about the world, about what's possible? Because whatever the answer is, that's exactly what you're meeting outside. And here's where the door to the next insight opens. Most people shrink imagination down to daydreaming, something children or idle minds do. But Neville Goddard insisted this was the greatest misunderstanding of all. Imagination is not passive fantasy. It is the portal to all realities. It is the living bridge to the state where your desire already exists, waiting for you to enter. Think of someone longing for financial freedom. They may picture a bigger house or more zeros in their bank account, but dismiss it as silly wishing. Yet if they knew imagination is the door, they would treat those inner pictures differently. What feels like a dream is actually the rehearsal of their chosen reality. Daydreaming feels distant, like a movie you watch from the outside. True imagination is immersive. It pulls you into the scene, makes you feel the warmth of the room, the texture of the experience, the emotions of being there. This is not escape, it is entry. Entry into a reality already alive in the unseen. Neville Goddard's teachings make this distinction clear. Imagination creates reality. The law of assumption doesn't respond to vague wishing, it responds to vivid assumption. When you stop calling it daydreaming and start seeing it as conscious creation, everything shifts. The portal is no longer ignored. It becomes your most powerful tool. Consider how a pilot trains in a flight simulator. It may look like pretend flying, but it prepares the body, the reflexes, the mind for the real thing. Imagination works the same way. What seems like pretending is actually alignment. You are rehearsing the state of being that eventually becomes your lived reality. The tragedy is that people use imagination unconsciously. They rehearse failure, worry, rejection, and call it being realistic. Yet realism is just an assumption wearing a mask. Conscious creation means choosing the movie you play inside. Daydreaming drifts, imagination directs, and direction is what bends life in your favor. Think of someone in love who imagines holding their partner's hand before it happens. That image creates a bridge. It feels real enough that when the moment arrives, it's déjà vu. They stepped through the portal long before the scene unfolded in physical form. Imagination was not fantasy, it was prophecy. The difference between daydreaming and true imagination is engagement. One is a wishful escape, the other is embodiment. When you embody, you assume the wish fulfilled. You live in the end, and the end pulls itself toward you. That's why Neville Goddard called imagination the creative power itself. So if you've been dismissing your inner visions as just daydreaming, pause. Ask yourself, what if this is the actual rehearsal of my future? What if this is the inner doorway to all realities? Suddenly your imagination is no longer background noise, it's the main event. And this leads directly to the next realization. Every time you imagine with genuine feeling, you are not simply thinking. You are stepping into a doorway, entering a new version of yourself. Neville Goddard's teachings emphasize this over and over. Imagination is the portal to all realities, and each state you assume already exists, complete and alive, waiting for you to inhabit it. Think of it this way. The version of you who already enjoys abundance, love, health, or peace is not a fantasy. It's real. When you close your eyes and feel yourself there, you're visiting that version. The more vividly you embody it, the more that self takes root. You're not becoming someone else. You're revealing who you've always been. Imagine someone longing for love. The moment they feel the warmth of companionship within, they've stepped into the state of being loved. That self is not imaginary. It exists in the inner world now. By assuming it fully, they invite the outer world to catch up. This is living in the end, not waiting for it to appear. Neville explained it beautifully. The self you most identify with is the one that manifests. If you identify with lack, that's the state you live in. If you identify with fulfillment, that state becomes the reality around you. Each act of imagination is a choice of identity, a decision about which version of you to activate. Think of an actor rehearsing a role. At first, it feels like play acting, but with time, the emotions, the gestures, the words all become second nature. They become the character. Your imagination works the same way. Each time you feel the wish fulfilled, you embody the self who already lives it until it feels natural. The outer world will argue with you saying, "That's not true yet." But the inner world doesn't need permission. It simply is. The self you step into by imagination is real, even when unseen. This is the mystery of the law of assumption. The act of feeling is the act of becoming, long before proof arrives. Picture a man who used to see himself as broke. One night, he imagines holding stacks of cash, feeling the texture, the weight, the joy of it. In that moment, he is no longer broke. He has stepped into a wealthy self. That version already existed. He just walked through the door into it. When you understand this, imagination stops being a game and becomes a practice. Every imaginal act is a choice of self, a portal to a new identity. You can shift from sick to well, from lonely to loved, from stuck to free, by entering the feeling of the version that already lives there. And here's the secret most overlook. The self you step into is waiting patiently, like a room you've never opened in your own house. It's not far away, not someday, it's here now. You open the door with imagination and feeling, and once you do, the next step becomes clear. Neville Goddard often insisted that complex rituals are unnecessary. The most powerful tool is a simple, sensory-rich scene imagined vividly. One short act, repeated with feeling, carries more power than endless affirmations without emotion. Imagination creates reality, and the key is to experience the wish fulfilled from within, not as a distant observer. Picture this. Instead of begging for a promotion, you imagine shaking hands with your boss, hearing the words, "Congratulations, you deserve it." You feel the warmth of their grip, the pride swelling in your chest, the relief that comes after. This is not fantasy, it is conscious creation. That small scene becomes the seed of change. It doesn't need to be long or complicated. In fact, Neville emphasized that brevity is best. The shorter the scene, the easier it is to return to it again and again. Think of replaying a highlight clip of your life before it happens. Each time you replay it with feeling, you step deeper into the state of being fulfilled. The difference is whether you're inside or outside the scene. If you see yourself from a distance, like a character on a screen, you remain detached. But when you enter fully, feeling the air, the textures, the emotions, you cross the threshold. Imagination is the door, and stepping into the scene makes it real. Consider someone longing for health. Instead of picturing medical charts, they imagine running up a hill, lungs full of clean air, heart pumping strong. They feel the ground under their feet, the wind against their face, the joy of movement. That simple act implies wholeness. The scene becomes a living experience of healing. This practice works because the subconscious doesn't argue with imagination. It accepts it as reality. If you repeatedly live inside the scene of your desire, your subconscious assumes it's true, and life begins to conform. The law of assumption works silently, aligning circumstances with the state you've embodied within. Think of someone desiring love. Rather than daydreaming vaguely, they imagine sitting at a dinner table, hearing laughter, feeling a hand intertwined with theirs. The details make it real. The inner world offers the scene, and the outer world echoes it. It's not hoping, it's assuming. It's not watching, it's living. The magic is in the feeling. A scene without emotion is like a script never acted out. But when you infuse it with gratitude, relief, or joy, it comes alive. Feeling transforms imagination into manifestation truth. That's why Neville called imagination the creative power, because the lived experience is already the creation itself. So, whenever doubt creeps in, return to the simple practice. Close your eyes, create a short scene that implies your desire, and feel yourself inside it. Like a favorite song, replay it until it feels natural. That is how you live in the end, long before it appears. And soon, another dimension of this practice unfolds. Imagination without feeling is like a script left on paper. It has potential, but no life. Neville Goddard's teachings make it clear. The bridge between thought and reality is emotion. When you feel relief, gratitude, or joy inside the imaginal scene, you've crossed the threshold. That's the moment the portal opens, and you embody the new state. Think of someone imagining wealth, but still feeling anxious. The picture remains hollow because the state hasn't changed, but when they truly feel secure, like the sigh of relief after a debt is cleared, imagination comes alive. The body responds, the heart lifts, and the mind says, "This is real." That's when conscious creation begins. Emotion is the glue that fuses imagination to identity. Without it, the inner world feels like daydreaming. With it, the state becomes embodied. Gratitude is especially powerful because it assumes completion. When you feel thankful for something not yet seen, you've accepted it as already done. That's the essence of the law of assumption. Consider the feeling of joy after hearing good news. The details matter less than the emotion itself. That vibration becomes a doorway. If you can summon the same joy while imagining your wish fulfilled, you live in the end. The outer world then aligns, not because you forced it, but because you entered the state fully. Neville compared this to wearing clothes. When you put on a new garment, you feel it against your skin. You know you're dressed differently. In the same way, when you clothe yourself in the feeling of fulfillment, you embody a new self. Imagination is the door, but feeling is the act of stepping through it. Even small sensations carry great power. The smile that comes when you imagine success, the calm breath of being cared for, the excitement of love returned. These are signals. They tell you you're not just thinking, but becoming. Each feeling reinforces the assumption, making it natural, inevitable, and magnetic. Think of someone recovering from illness. If they imagine health but feel fear, they're still outside the state. But if they imagine health and feel the freedom of movement, the joy of vitality, the gratitude of being whole, the body follows. Feeling is not decoration. It's the cause that activates the imaginal act. Relief is one of the strongest indicators. It's the release of tension, the sense that the struggle is over. When you can breathe easily while imagining, you've entered the state. That relief isn't imaginary. It's evidence that the subconscious has accepted the new reality. From there, manifestation is already in motion. Joy, gratitude, relief, they are more than emotions. They are signs you've stepped into the portal. They mean you've stopped wishing and started living the end. The inner self has shifted, and once that happens, the outer world can't help but follow. This is the true power of assumption at work. So if imagination feels empty, don't add more effort, add more feeling. Let gratitude fill the scene. Let joy animate it. Let relief carry you through. That's the moment the inner picture becomes a living experience. And once you've tasted that shift, you'll understand why appearances outside mean so little. How often do people give up? Because nothing seems to change on the outside. Neville Goddard would say that's the greatest trap. The outer world is not the cause. It's the echo, the delayed shadow of what you've already assumed within. To judge by appearances is to forget the law of assumption and its timing. Think of sunlight hitting a tree. The shadow appears a moment later, stretched across the ground. No one mistakes the shadow for the source. Yet in life, we do exactly that, treating outer appearances as primary and inner imagination as secondary. In truth, imagination creates reality, and the shadow simply follows. This means that when appearances contradict you, they're not evidence against your desire. They're proof of your old assumptions still echoing. You might assume health today and still see symptoms tomorrow, but those symptoms are fading shadows. The new state has already been set in motion, waiting for its turn to appear. Consider money. You may imagine abundance and still open your bank account to see little there. That's the echo of your past self, the old seed still playing out. But if you hold steady in imagination, living in the end, the outer must eventually align. The shadow cannot resist the source forever. Neville called the outer world frozen imagination. What you see now is yesterday's belief crystallized. It has no real power of its own. This is why appearances feel slow. They're just catching up. The imaginal act is the true cause, and the outer is simply the report card of what you've already planted inside. Think of an actor waiting for a stage set to be changed. Behind the curtain, workers are already rearranging everything. The actor knows the shift is happening, even if the audience can't see it yet. Your imagination works the same way. The set is being prepared. The delay doesn't mean denial. When appearances shout no, your task is to whisper yes within, to hold the inner picture with feeling, despite what the senses tell you. This isn't denial of reality, it's recognition that reality itself is layered. The outer is temporary, the inner is eternal. The shadow must eventually bend to the light. The danger is reacting too soon. If you drop the assumption at the first sign of contradiction, you replant the old seed. You go back to living in the shadow instead of the source. But if you persist, calmly and faithfully, the outer world has no choice. It must yield to the imaginal state you've embodied. Every great transformation begins this way. Appearances say one thing, imagination says another. Those who persist discover the truth. The inner world wins every time. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. The outer is a mirror, and mirrors take time to catch the reflection clearly. So when the world seems stubborn, remember, it's only a shadow, delayed and fading. The true cause has already been set in motion through imagination. Stay with the inner act, stay with the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and let appearances dissolve, because soon, subtle signs will begin to show. The first signs of manifestation rarely come as fireworks. Instead, they arrive quietly, almost unnoticeable, like whispers of a new reality forming. Neville Goddard often pointed out that once you've assumed the wish fulfilled, your inner world changes first. You feel lighter, calmer, and more expectant, even before anything shifts outside. It might be as subtle as a mood change. You wake up with unusual peace, or you notice relief where there used to be tension. This is not coincidence. It's evidence that imagination has already planted new roots. The law of assumption is at work, and your emotions are signaling that you've stepped into a new state. Then come the synchronicities. You overhear someone talking about the very thing you've imagined. A book falls into your lap, a video pops up, or a stranger confirms the idea you've been holding inside. These are not random. They're reflections of the new inner assumption, soft proof that imagination creates reality. Think of someone who imagines a new job. Before the offer arrives, they might suddenly meet people in that field or see job ads everywhere. It's as if life starts rearranging itself to prepare the stage. These coincidences are not the goal. They're the early signs that the portal has opened and you've stepped through. The most beautiful sign, though, is expectancy. Not a tense, anxious waiting, but a quiet knowing. You no longer chase or force, you simply expect. Like a pregnant mother doesn't doubt the child is coming. You don't doubt your assumption. That effortless confidence means the new state has already taken root within. Neville described this as living in the end. When you've truly assumed the wish fulfilled, the world feels different, even if it looks the same. You notice more ease, more alignment, more synchronicities flowing to you. These subtle shifts are confirmation. The imaginal act is alive, and the outer world is catching up. Sometimes it's the smallest things that reassure you. A phone call from someone you haven't heard from in years, a piece of mail with your name in an unexpected place, even the feeling of déjà vu when events unfold. Each moment whispers, you are aligned, you are on track, the unseen is becoming seen, and when doubt arises, as it always does, these early signs serve as reminders. You don't need to panic, the process is working. The seed has already been planted in imagination, and these synchronicities are the first leaves breaking through the soil. They are gentle signals that reality is bending to meet you. The shift in mood is often the greatest gift, because once you feel better before anything happens, you're free. You're no longer chained to circumstances. You've discovered the secret Neville Goddard pointed to again and again. Your inner world comes first. Everything else follows. That is manifestation truth in action. So when you notice these subtle changes, don't dismiss them. Smile, acknowledge them, and let them reassure you. They are not the full harvest yet, but they're signs of life, proof that your imagination has already gone to work. And as this embodiment deepens, something even greater begins to unfold. At first, using imagination feels like practice. You close your eyes, build a scene, repeat it with effort. But over time, something shifts. It becomes natural, automatic, like breathing. Neville Goddard's teachings remind us that when you truly embody a state, you stop asking, "Is this working?" You simply live from it, without doubt. Think of learning to ride a bike. In the beginning, every movement feels clumsy, conscious, uncertain. But once balance is found, you don't think about pedaling. You just ride. Imagination works the same way. What starts as deliberate practice eventually becomes second nature. The power of assumption becomes the rhythm of your life. When you reach this stage, there's no more straining. You don't chase signs or cling to evidence. You trust the unseen as naturally as you trust gravity. Living in the end feels as normal as waking up each day. Imagination is no longer something you do. It's the way you exist. Consider someone who used to imagine abundance with effort. They created scenes, repeated them, tried hard to believe. But one day, it simply felt true. They began spending money with ease, walking with confidence, speaking as though abundance were obvious. That shift from practice to embodiment is where manifestation truth becomes effortless. Neville compared it to moving into a new house. At first, everything feels unfamiliar, but after a few weeks, the layout, the smells, the sounds become home. You stop noticing. It's just where you live. When you embody a state fully, imagination is no longer an exercise. It's the atmosphere you breathe daily. This deep embodiment is freedom, because doubt no longer shakes you. You don't ask, "Will it happen?" You know it already has in the inner world. And since imagination creates reality, the outer world must eventually mirror it. You've stopped wishing and started being. That's the essence of conscious creation. Think of an actor who becomes so immersed in a role they stop acting. The lines, the emotions, the character flow naturally. That's embodiment. In the same way, once you identify fully with your desired self, you no longer play pretend. You simply are, and life adjusts accordingly. This stage also brings peace, because you no longer wrestle with appearances. You understand the outer is just a delayed echo. You've seen enough synchronicities, felt enough inner shifts to know imagination is the true cause. Living from it is no longer effort, it's habit, identity, truth. Deep embodiment is the moment imagination becomes invisible, not because it disappears, but because it's everywhere. You think, speak, and act from the end without realizing you're doing it. Like breathing, it sustains you without effort. That's when the portal isn't something you visit. It's the space you always live in. And from here, a final realization emerges. If imagination has become natural, if the inner world flows into the outer without question, then what remains is the bold step to claim your power fully, to walk through the portal into every possibility that awaits. Neville Goddard's teachings point to one undeniable truth. Imagination is the portal to all realities. Not some, not a few, all. Every version of life you could live already exists in the unseen, waiting for you to enter it through assumption. The power of assumption is the key that unlocks the door, and boldness is what walks you through. Most people tiptoe around their desires, treating them like fragile wishes. But when you understand imagination creates reality, hesitation fades. You realize that entering boldly, living in the end with certainty, is the way forward. What you assume with conviction becomes law, and the outer world bends to meet it. Think of explorers setting sail centuries ago. The ocean seemed endless, the horizon uncertain, but they trusted there was land beyond. In the same way, you trust imagination as your compass. You enter the scene of your wish fulfilled, not timidly, but fully, as though it already belongs to you. That certainty is creation. The inner world is not less real, it's more real because it's the cause. When you treat imagination as fantasy, you stay outside the door. But when you honor it as reality itself, you walk through the portal. And as Neville said, once the imaginal act is done, the world must conform, it cannot resist. To enter boldly means to stop waiting for permission. Don't ask circumstances to change first. Don't wait for signs to prove it's working. Step inside the feeling of the wish fulfilled now, as though it's the most natural thing in the world. That step is the creation itself. The rest is just shadow catching up. Imagine someone longing for love. To enter timidly is to hope, to wish, to doubt. To enter boldly is to feel loved now, to sit at the table of companionship as though it's already theirs. That boldness signals faith, and faith is the fuel of manifestation truth. Life will echo that certainty without fail. Boldness doesn't mean force. It means surrendering fully. It's the quiet confidence that says, I am already there. Relief, gratitude, and joy naturally follow, because you're no longer chasing, you're living in the end. And from that place, the world begins rearranging itself in ways that defy logic but align perfectly. Every possibility exists: abundance, love, health, freedom. The question is not if, but which. Which door will you walk through? Which self will you choose to embody? Imagination is the portal, always open, always waiting, and your assumption is the hand that turns the knob. So walk boldly. Dare to live as though your desire is already done. Treat imagination not as play, but as the most powerful force in existence, because when you step fully into the state, the chosen reality cannot help but unfold around you. It's not magic, it's law. And that's where Neville leaves us, not with more theory, but with a challenge. To stop waiting, to stop doubting, and to claim the truth. Imagination is the door, and you hold the key. Step through boldly and see the world change before your eyes. So now the choice rests with you. Will you keep waiting for reality to change first, or will you dare to step boldly into the state where your desire is already alive? Remember, imagination is not a toy. It is the creative power itself. And every time you assume the wish fulfilled, you open the door to a new version of yourself. Ask yourself, what am I assuming about life today? Am I living in fear or in fulfillment? Am I holding on to shadows or stepping into the portal of my chosen reality? These questions are not casual. They determine the world you meet tomorrow. Neville Goddard's teachings remind us that conscious creation is simple but profound. Live in the end and let the outer world catch up. And if you felt even a spark of possibility while listening, don't let it fade. Apply it. Close your eyes tonight, create the scene and feel it as though it's already yours. And if this message spoke to you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning. We're building a space where imagination, the law of assumption, and conscious creation become your daily reality. Don't just watch, step through the portal with us.